All right, so it is the doc and the musician.
Hello.
We are here today with 3 shots in. We're going all the way to talk about week 1 of the season 1 of the Ontario 40K League.
Yeah.
So how you doing these days?
Pretty good. Just anticipating for my game. I haven't played yet, but looking forward to it on the 15th with Kyle. So
Kyle, the dark horse himself.
yes.
Yeah.
And just paying attention to the games that have come in already. My condolences on your week 1 loss, but that's okay.
I don't really consider it a loss per se. After all, 69 points. I winned that number of points.
Yeah, figuratively it's a win, but it's literally a loss. So it's a tie when it's a wash.
It's a wash, yeah, after we get through all 5 games. And, if I get that many points in every single game, then I'm going to be pretty happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got to look at this league as a way to play new people, get better as players, and learn as you go. And,
Exactly.
I'm confident that Scott Chamber will come in like middle of the pack, solid middle of the pack.
Hey, listen, we did like in Canhammer, which we're actually in the second quartile from the top.
Yeah.
So pretty happy with that, and I think we aim for something like that. Like the way I'm viewing it right now is like, okay, we've got actually just above that middle point there. My opponent, Wes, he was an awesome opponent. He really knew his army. He was playing Chaos Space Marines, a really basically a multiple small unit, which is something that I struggle with. Because I can do a lot of focusing fire with Ash and wipe something off the table.
But if they're only a small, low points, respective, comparative unit, then what have you really done?
Exactly. So in this particular one, I had to change my tactic and split fire, and just wear each of them down a little bit and try and hope that that works, which it didn't.
So if you could pinpoint where you could have done better, or one mistake you make that you can remember for next time, or one lesson learned, what would it be?
So the biggest one I got was about, actually 2 of them I would say is regarding target priority, like basic stuff, target priority, and just positioning of the units. There was one point later in the game which I left myself exposed for him to do a big charge in with his warlord, which wiped out my warlord. And then another one where he came in with a group of berserkers, which I should have seen it, but he came in, wiped out the tech marine, wiped out 2 of the groups of my intercessors, which were holding the objectives, and after that, things started to crumble apart. So
yeah, you got to pay attention. It's a chess match, right? If I move here, what's he gonna do next turn, and what am I gonna do after he does what he does? And it's not easy.
Exactly, and I'll give him credit for that. Like I set it up, I didn't notice pieces, and he did what any good player should. He took advantage of it.
Yeah.
And he jumped in there and basically wiped out some of my key pieces.
Right. Anything else you want to say about the game?
I'd say it gave me a lesson learned in terms of what I need to do from an MSU perspective, because that is one of the weakness armies. And also how
weaknesses of your army?
Yeah, it's a weakness of my army, exactly. And also something that is a very general one, particularly in these terrain-heavy fields, is I need to be able to kill something every single turn. And when we got a lot of these terrain-heavy pieces, where they just basically can hide.
Yes.
And so that whole first turn, my Ash, my heavy-hitting unit, isn't doing anything. And for those who haven't heard about Ash, that is my Astreus Super Heavy. And basically he's designed to kill with the boomsticks, and he's designed to basically wipe out 1 to 2 units every single turn.
And he can, if you're not careful, he can. We've played several times, and you can just wipe a 5-man unit of Deathwing Terminators like it's nobody's business. It's like a piece of cake for you. But if you don't play him smart, you can leave him exposed, and you can not see targets. And that I find that a lot of this 9th edition play has to do with multiple small units, hiding and trading well, right? Like trading a unit, killing up. I don't know if that's the actual term for it, but
it makes sense, yeah.
Trading points. Like, I'm taking out this unit that costs more money than my unit does. At taking those opportune moments, and not exposing yourself if you don't have to, because it's not about killing. It's about scoring objectives. And if you are exposing yourself just to kill something and not score any points, that's a waste.
It is, and actually it's interesting thing that what I'm trying a slight variation on, and I might look at it for the next one, depending who I think I'm going to be playing against, is something designed to increase my chances of killing something every single turn. But there is a trade-off, of course. Basically, it's more firepower and potentially either less durability or less board coverage. And it's finding that right balance based on what works. But one thing I'm looking at, and I'll give a bit of a hint on that, is things that fly.
Okay.
Because another thing I've noticed is there's a lot of assault type armies.
Right.
And if you have a lot of flyers, unless those assault type armies can
They're
flying,
Fly, yeah.
you can have those a little bit safer, as long as they don't have a lot of shooting at the same time.
And that's just the general point you made about being able to change your list. And I love that about this league, that you can go from game to game, learn from your mistakes, modify appropriately. Sometimes the mistakes are yours alone, and your list doesn't need modification. It's a good list. You just played it poorly. I've done that mistake myself. But it's a great opportunity to say, well, this unit didn't really do what I expected it or hoped it would, so I'm going to try something else. And I, since my interview with you, my list isn't the same anymore. I've played a handful of games since then, and I've got some elements to it that are different.
So it sounds like Kyle's going to be in for some surprises.
Well, I mean, not in the sense that we can look at each other's lists now, which is great. There won't be any surprises, but hopefully, he doesn't have as much experience playing against Dark Angels as I'd have playing Death Guard, because I own a Death Guard army. Now, it's not something that I've brought to a competitive level, but I have the Codex. I played a handful of games in Ninth with the I was wanting to call them Dark Angels for some reason. It's no, the Death Guard. Yeah. So
We're
I like
both traders, so don't worry about it.
I like to think that I can see some of his tricks coming. I know he's got 50 Poxwalkers, so he's got lots of OBSEC board control. He's got 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, so he's got 3 tanks with entropy cannons and the mortars that don't need line of sight. And one of those mortars has a strat that if I'm crowded up too much, he can do mortal wounds around the unit that he hits. So, I like to think that I have an advantage going in, but I never take anybody for granted. So.
Yeah, he's actually a very experienced player.
Yeah,
he knows how to do the army. Honestly, and I've said this before, I give you the edge on that because you do know his army. He doesn't necessarily know yours quite as well. Yeah. But they call him the dark horse for a reason. Yeah,
that's true. I also have high hopes for Glenn's game against Kira, but once again, who knows what can happen. I don't know Kira that well. I know she's an Eldar player, so as an Eldar player, I always wish well. And quite frankly, as someone that plays Glenn often, although he's in our team, I always want to see him lose. But I'm kidding, but I do want to see him win it. And Glenn is a surprise player. He brings lists that people don't. He went 4-1 at Canhammer with a Sisters list that wasn't meta or whatever,
because he really thinks it through in terms of what works and what doesn't, and he plans all these things out. So he's and that's really well suited to this type of game, which requires a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, and then in the game itself, he pays attention to what's going on the table.
Yeah, and so I think that'll be a great matchup. We'll have a quick moment of silence for Martin's loss.
It wasn't that bad of a loss.
No, Martin played a great game, but I've played Armando once. He's a really nice guy to play against, and he is efficient. He knows what's going on, and he obviously changed his list. I played him at the Starter Scrub Invitational last month, and I guess his list has a lot more knights in it now.
3 of them,
for the unit. Yeah. So from no knights to 3 for his ad mech,
including a Castellan.
Yeah, and Martin is not as experienced as Armando, I would imagine, so it would have been a hard matchup for him, and I'm proud that he got the points that he did.
Yeah, so and that's again setting a good trend that we at least want to be getting into the 60s, 70s if we can, if we lose a game. Obviously, if we're winning a game, we're looking at 80s and 90s, and I'm confident for the next round, because now we get the sort of pairings closer to where we're at. I think it's more likely that we're going to be against those that we can be the mid-table terrors for the time being until, we get to beat them up a little bit and move up our rankings.
So, my game's August 15th. Glenn's is this week, depending on when you release this video. We don't want to time ourselves out, but I'm looking forward to my game, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the results of all the games out there. Of course, there'll be cheering for you to go take the win.
I would hope so.
Of course. Even though you're a trader.
Yeah, I am. I'm a dirty trader. Yeah. Thanks,
Anything
Mark.
else you
Thanks,
wanna say?
Doc. No, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Musician,
My
the
pleasure.
musician.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap. We're going 3 shots in.